So, first of all, on the question of bus service, I assume you would accept the fact that where you put something like the crosstown LRT across Eglinton, it is not only possible, but it is common sense you would see less bus service along there because you have a rapid transit line operating along Eglinton. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
If we had a rapid transit line from Kennedy Station to U of T Scarborough, I would hope that that would alleviate the need for as much bus service along that corridor.
So someone who's talking about planning those kinds of higher order transit services would be just starting the clock, would be perfectly within their rights, as it were. It would be sensible. They would offset some reduction in bus service that would be possible if you had the higher order transit, correct?
Not across all of Scarborough, only in the corridor where the rapid transit
Let's just be
existed.
clear. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Where there is a higher order transit line put in, LRT, subway, whatever, it's reasonable in that place at that time to count on some reduction in bus service because you have higher order transit under the ground or above ground serving the same area.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, secondly, I assume you're aware of the announcement made when you said there was nothing going on and no reference to the relief line. I'm sure you're aware of the announcement made on May 31st by myself and the Minister of Transportation for Ontario of $150 million funding, which I just mentioned to you. TTC officials described at the time, and I quote them, the most significant funding to date for the relief line, which has been discussed by planners for decades. Were you aware of that announcement of $150 million? I
was aware of that announcement. Yes.
And do you think that will be funding some work on the relief line? I mean, are you aware that that's what it's for, design and planning work and so on?
I'm afraid unless I actually see that there is funding for the construction of a project, I do not hold any hope that it will happen.
Okay, well, let's go back over that. I assume you would agree that something, in order to be built, you have to have plans, you have to decide on a route, you have to assess the different consequences environmentally and otherwise of that project before you can actually start building it. You'd agree with that?
I do agree with that. However, I'm just wondering why the Eglinton East LRT and the downtown relief line were not included in this report, because the impression I get from the report is SmartTrack and Eglinton West are the priorities right now. And unless I hear something different, I don't really know what else to think.
Do you know of the timetables of these projects that have been put forward previously that suggest that because it's, I'll call it behind on
Yes.
the timing schedule because of the decades that have been spent by people talking about it and not doing anything about it, that the relief line is a project that has a longer timetable that goes out because of the planning? For example, were you aware that even at this committee and at council, there's still a debate going on involving some councillors and neighbours and others about the route that the relief line should take? That there's a debate going on about that in which local people are having that debate. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
So would you understand then, I'm sure, that you couldn't start building something until you've decided on the route, for example?
I agree. We need to have a good planning process.
So would you know that there is there are some dates in the spring of next year, the winter actually, so it's coming up very soon, to consult the neighbours who are the ones that are having a debate about the route so that we can decide on the route, and then and that'll involve spending some of this $150 million, so then we can get on as soon as possible with building the relief line. You'd understand that we have to do that kind of work first.
I do understand that. I guess because there doesn't look to me like there is any cost-sharing arrangement with the province.
Actually, you're right, because they're paying all $150 million of that money and we're paying zero.
I mean for the operations and the maintenance.
Well, we have,
and it leaves, it's a blank, there's something that hasn't been filled in.
Okay.
And we're just worried that when these answers aren't there, that means you've forgotten about it.
It's certainly not forgotten about, I assure you, but thank you very much for your answers and for